Welcome to the 13th episode of the Python tutorial series. This will be our final episode about lists for the moment, and today's topic is really simple. Today is all about making you look like a real coding professional. Up until now, we've always used for loops and while loops to explicitly append elements to a list. List comprehensions are a really cool way to save a lot of time and space when writing code. A list comprehension is, as the name suggests, a list with the iteration loop built directly inside it. So if we look at this example, we would normally write list equals an empty list, and then for I in range 10 in this case, list.append I squared. So this would append all the numbers from 0 to 9 squared to our list. But what if we could write it in one line? Well, with a list comprehension, we can. Simply write list equals, open square brackets, I squared for I in range 10. See how simple it is? Now, as an example, let's take a look at the code we wrote in our first episode on for loops. By the way, if you haven't seen that episode yet, make sure to check it out first by clicking on the link in the top right-hand corner of your screen now. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of the tutorials. Here is the code we wrote in our first episode on for loops. Our task today is to take what we've learned in these last few episodes of the Python tutorial series and improve its style and efficiency. So first, we can remove line 8 and simply integrate that within the indices. So we take length of our list and paste it into here. So we now no longer need these lines. Similarly, why declare a variable on line 9 for our indices and then iterate them in the for loop? Why not just declare them directly in the for loop? So that's exactly what we can do. There you go. Those are 2 more lines off. Now, as we can see, there's no need to assign our element, square it, and then reassign it. Simply we can do element squared directly reassigned to the list, so we can get rid of those lines. And then instead of declaring a variable element and then squaring it, we can square our first list I directly. So that's off. See how many lines we've reduced? And the code still works, it still does the same job. Now, doesn't this look very familiar? Well, I'm sure the more perceptive of you have realized this is exactly like the example I showed you a few minutes earlier. This is the ideal scenario for a list comprehension. So let's write it. First, we have to bear in mind that the new list that we are creating should have the same name as the old one, because that's the way we built the code in the beginning, and as you know, we want to preserve its functionality. So we can write our first list equals a list. And what will this list contain? Well, it will contain element squared, because remember we're squaring the element, for element in our first list. And in doing so, we are basically taking each element inside our first list, squaring it, and adding it to this list, this new list, which has the same name. So now we can get rid of all these lines here. And there you go. Now you can clearly see how much more efficient our coding has become since the beginning of this series. To confirm it works, let's run it by clicking the F5 key, and as you can see, it still does its job. we have the values 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, etc., which are the precise squares of the numbers in our first list. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming tutorials. I look forward to seeing you next week for a new episode of the Python tutorial series. See you next time!